If we take a minute to look through history and carry that on to present day, it's clear that men and women alike have always had some kind of romanticized attraction to the automobile. In 1888, the German Carl Benz was the first to do it, and did just that. While in North America, Henry Ford was not only making his own cars, but thanks to him, made the car available to the masses in 1908 with the invention of the assembly line. The rest is in the history books, but their legacies are carried on by some of the biggest car manufacturers that are still around. We have Mercedes-Benz giving credit to Carl Benz. And we have, obviously, Ford giving credit to Mr. Henry Ford. But just like our fascination with automobiles, it's also human nature to want to compete. And if you put the automobile with the drive and dedication of someone that's good at it and willing to compete with another person, well, then you would stumble upon something that we call auto racing. Now, the first true race took place in 1895, where the winner drove an average speed of only 14 miles an hour. Again, I'm here to ask you the question, then why are we so infatuated with cars? Now, can we put the blame, and is it because we have been lucky enough to receive some amazing cars to drive throughout history? First car that comes to mind is the Porsche 911 with its legendary handling and performance. It has a long line of racing history with racing wins. The manufacturer decided to put the engine in the rear of the car while still giving the car the performance that it needs to be a successful sports car. And even to this day, the quality and performance is still put in their cars. Or can we credit the BMW M3, which had amazing performance but could carry a family of four and wasn't afraid to put a big engine and a lot of performance in a saloon car? Or maybe it's that bright, red, flashy Ferrari F40. It's just as appealing as it is fast. Again, we can't forget that car at the time was the fastest production car in the world. When I was young, I remember having my eyes glued to the TV, watching Michael Schumacher scream around the racetrack, winning race after race in his Ferrari F1 car. And I was so young at the time, I didn't even understand how good he was, but instead looked up to him. Why? Because I wanted to be just like him when I grew up.
The Executive Director of Japan.
I learned about the all-time greats like Niki Lauda, Alain Prost, and Ayrton Senna, just to name a few. And Senna, to this day, is still one of my all-time heroes. And less than 100 years later, Senna would be constantly hitting 200 plus miles an hour for hours at a time, achieving 80 podiums, 65 pole positions, and 3 world championships along the way. Again, it's in our nature to compete, and Senna was, and still is, one of the best to ever do it. So, enough of the auto racing industry. What about the everyday car industry? Unfortunately, not all of us will be world-renowned race car drivers, or in fact, even able to drive one. So, why are us common folk still interested in cars then? It's a loaded question, but in my opinion, it's a combination of three core things. Number one, the creativity in their design. We've all seen a car that we love because it's such a beautiful car. And even cars that are not widely considered beautiful, cars that are different, cars that are unique, we're still attracted to them. Or two, an amazement of what the automobile can do. Back to Porsche with its performance, or a Ferrari, or a Lamborghini, or even a Tesla now. These cars are fast and they're capable. Third, we can't forget the thrill of driving one. We may never get to drive a Ferrari, but for those that have the opportunity to drive, they have experienced pushing a car that was made to be pushed to the limit. Now, you don't have to drive a Ferrari. A lot of people that I know, they take their cars off-roading and have just as good as an experience. And you may not even have to do that. In fact, it may be your first car. It may be a car that you borrowed or a car that you drove and you have a memory of driving that car. Again, it's the thrill of driving one and it's the overall experience. Now, to me, this is the most interesting and it is the most crucial point of why we are infatuated with automobiles. So we've been able to attack this question. How? Well, we've talked about some of the greatest cars in history. We've talked about one of the greatest drivers in history. And we've even talked about the geniuses that put their minds together to give us some of the first automobiles, as well as provide those cars to the masses. I'll leave you with some footage of some of the greatest car and auto racing moments in history. In our search, that we continue to love cars.
The delight of his countrymen wins in Brazil.
It's a great result, and to see the crowd there, it's something that you have to experience.
Uses the left car of Rick Bass as a pit. 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
Colin Mcrae, 1995 World Rally Champion.
Seems a bit strange, doesn't it?
As he rounds the final corner, it's high fives for Lewis Hamilton, a five-time champion of the world.
Wonder who's up ahead there. I can see the Kavallero fairly well ahead.
Five weeks later, I was back in the Kind Monza.
The first thing that I would like to ask you, because some people say that a car is sometimes the extension of someone's character. What kind of car would suit your character as Paul, not as Brian in the movie?
Well, there's a different car for almost every day, I think. It depends on what mood you're in. Like, you know, I wish you could just say that 4 cars would be enough, but in my experience, it isn't. Like, you can't have too many. It depends on your mood. Some days you wake up and you feel, what do I want to drive? What do I feel like today? I mean, to have that option, I think would just be great. A different car for 365 days out of the year, I'd be pretty happy.
So what kind of cars would that be? Muscle or import?
Everything. Everything. My problem is I appreciate them all. The cars are my vice. Like, I collect cars, that's what I do. I love everything about them. And, you know, in this movie you see, there's import guys, there's domestic guys, and there's European guys. I like them all, I have them all, and I will always have multiples of each. it's a big part of my lifestyle. It's a big part of who I am, and it'll always remain that way.